and yet this book was almost not published.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court almost kept it from being published. Did you ever in your wildest dreams think that could happen when you started writing?
No, fuck no. I mean, we're in Britain. We don't ban books in this country. What the fuck? I mean, I'm not inciting terrorism, and even if I was, it still wouldn't have been banned. I mean, the kicker was it wasn't just the book that was injuncted. They were after a gagging order that would stop me writing or speaking in any medium anywhere in the world about mental illness, self-harm, treatment of mental illness, sexual abuse, suicide attempts. Like, I could not tweet, "I'm off to see my shrink," without the threat of imprisonment. Can you imagine? It was like, I mean, a bunch of judges sitting there and saying, "Mr. Rhodes, I'm sorry, your past, you're not entitled to it. It does not exist. You can't talk about it. That's the end of." Which was just, I mean, astonishing. So it never occurred to me for a minute that that would happen. But, you know, it did. And initially in the High Court we won. And I got to say, we won convincingly and quickly and with real, you know, strength from the judge, Mr. Justice Bean, who I love, who was funny at the end of the second day. The opposing counsel, the opposing QC, you know, full of, you know, pomp and drama, he said something like, "Your Honor, I'm sure you'll want to take some time to think about it. It's a very complicated case." And the judge just said, "Actually, no." It's like, "Sit down." It's like, "There's no, of course I don't need to take any time. What are you thinking? Of course the book should go ahead. This should never have come before me." And I thought, this is great. And then in kind of almost sensational British style, I mean, you couldn't make this shit up, they were granted an appeal based on a tort from 1897 where someone in a pub in East London played a practical joke that went wrong. And I mean, it's never been used in publishing. It hasn't been used in this country for, you know, a century. And I think they thought, oh, this will be interesting to talk about at the Garrick Club, and, you know, and that's why it made headlines everywhere, all around. I mean, it was all anonymized. No one could know it was me. I wasn't allowed to mention anything about this. The book was put on hold. It was just sitting in a warehouse. And then they won the appeal, and the Court of Appeal said it needed to go to trial. And
this is all happening because your son's mother didn't want
my ex-wife, yeah,
to hear or know about these things? Is that why there was grounds for this?
There were no ground. There was no precedent for it. But my ex-wife, who lives in another country, where her reasoning was, he's not going to read the book because it's an adult book, but extracts may appear on the internet, may be mentioned in reviews. He may Google his dad and see certain things about his past which would cause him catastrophic psychological harm. Of course, a parent has to do everything they can to protect their child. I mean, of course they do. I mean, but this is a parenting thing. She wouldn't take the makers of Grand Theft Auto to court to pull the game from everywhere in the world because he wanted to play Grand Theft Auto. You'd say, "I'm sorry, when you're 18, you do what you want," but you're not. It's like, you're 12, you do what I say. End of. I know Dad's written a book. When you're 18, you can read it. He's written it, you know, for his fans and for a few friends. And if you want to ask any questions about what's in it, let's talk about it. What you don't do is say, "You know what, I'm going to pursue for 18 months, spend $2 million in legal fees, both sides of the Atlantic, to try and pull a book and gag this guy from speaking about his past on the off chance someone somewhere may write on the internet he was raped as a child, and my son will see it and his head will explode." Because he won't. And I mean, he won't care. Even if he saw the book, he'd giggle at the word fuck and then he'd go and play his Xbox. I mean, really, it's that simple. The lesson for me is, we don't say to children, "We don't talk about this." No, you know that stuff you hear about in school? We don't talk about it. A much, much, much more valuable lesson for me is to say, look, this isn't easy to hear, but that stuff you learn about in school, the stuff you see on the news, something like that happened to Dad when he was younger, and he didn't talk about it at the time, and in a way, even though it felt safer to not talk about it, it made things worse. And it was only when he became an adult And he went to hospital and he saw a doctor who could help with his head, the damage it had caused. He came out the...
To watch the rest of this fascinating interview, click on the link below and go to londonreelacademy.com. There you can sign in with your social media login and watch the rest of the episode for free, along with all of our episodes on London Reel, my webinars, and all of our premium content, all located over at londonreelacademy.com. So click on the link below, you'll be directed there and you can watch the rest of this fascinating interview, and I'll see you there.